What's the deal, YouTube? It's your girl, Miss Honey. Welcome back to the channel, you guys. Welcome back. I hope you guys had a wonderful Thanksgiving. We are in here to talk about a quick topic, which is Pastor Jamal Bryant being installed as the new lead pastor over New Birth Baptist Church here. Well, I'm in Florida now because it's Thanksgiving, but in my hometown of Atlanta, Georgia, more specifically Stonecrest, Georgia. I should have talked about this a couple of days ago, but you know, life happens. You're going to probably see family members walking around in the background. Just don't even focus on them. Like, coffee maker's right here, the cake's right behind me, so is the pie. So a lot of activity. Let's talk about this real quick. I felt compelled to talk about it. One, because I came in with a video that has been wildly successful in terms of views. When Bishop Eddie Long passed away from New Birth, he was the founding pastor of New Birth, and when he passed away, it was huge here in the city of Atlanta, Metro Atlanta, DeKalb County. Stonecrest is now incorporated, so it's a city. And it was huge for us because Bishop Eddie Long was such a pillar, such a staple in our community. Even when scandal rocked their church, you know, it just, even that was huge conversation. So now that we have gone through what I guess was an interim pastor, I didn't understand that to be the case. Which was, I think, Bishop Davis from Alabama. He has like a offshoot or a sister church to New Birth in Alabama. And Bishop himself said that he had gone down under the leading of the Lord to bring Bishop Davis on as his successor. So it was weird. It's weird now to hear people say that he's the interim. He was the interim. Well, earlier this year, he stepped down. I mean, he was only going to be able to do that for so long. He's got two churches of his own in Alabama, in and about Alabama. He's got a wife. He's got two young daughters. I mean, if they're anything, there might be middle school. When he first came on board, which I think he was on board for like 2 or 3 years. I think Bishop Long's been gone about 2 years. But anyway, so he got young girls, you know, they need their daddy there, and that back and forth and 2 services on Sunday, like that was taking its toll on him. It's gonna take its toll on anybody. So it was just odd. And then we got to see this moment where the necklace or the cross that Bishop Long had given Bishop Davis, that was supposed to be the kind of mantle. We saw Bishop Davis pray and give it to Edward Long. Now, Edward Long is the eldest son of the late Bishop Eddie Long. Now, I follow him on Instagram. And he seems to be a very positive individual. He seems to be sort of in touch with the younger crowd, the youth. He seems to be very well traveled, very well spoken. He seems to have a even keel about him. And even the day that the necklace was passed, I mean, it was just sort of this feeling across the whole church. It certainly came across over the computer screen when I was watching it. The service where he took his dad's necklace back, and then he in turn spoke, you know, had a few words to say, and it was a powerful, I guess sermonette. I wouldn't say it was a sermon, you know, it was just his response to receiving this necklace. It was also kind of like a peace offering, because I think, I'm not sure, but I think it was probably in the back of Edward's mind that he would take his dad's church, him being the elder son and sort of being groomed by his dad to a certain degree. And then when that didn't happen, I think that's when Brother Edward, the eldest son, instead of just falling into things with Bishop Davis as he was the interim, he kind of went on his own journey and did his own thing. Like I said, I follow him on Instagram. He travels. I think he does speaking engagements and things like that. But there was something there. I wouldn't say it was full on animosity, but there was something there. And him receiving this necklace that was given to his dad, that was given to Bishop Davis by his dad, the late Bishop Eddie Long, was considered to be like a mantle, like a peace offering. Like, this always belonged to you, basically, is what he was saying. It's always been yours. And so I took that to mean that maybe by proxy, the church was going to be his too, right? But hold that thought. Evidently, the board, y'all, if y'all watch my Green Leaf reviews, y'all know the church board is something else. Like, the pastor is the figurehead, but apparently in a lot of churches, the board run things. What the board say go. Now, of course, this is all in the bylaws and the contracts and things of that nature. But for the most part, the board runs things. Well, that wasn't necessarily true with the late Bishop Eddie Long, and the reason why is because Bishop Eddie Long ran his church like a corporation. You go back and look at the video I did at the time of his death. We talk about that a little bit. So one of the reasons why Bishop Eddie Long, when that whole sex scandal happened, could not just be ousted and replaced is because he owned New Birth outright. Like, that was his church. He founded it. It was treated a little bit like a corporation in that he was the founder, the CEO, the CFO. Like, he was in charge, and he could decide to step down, but could nobody make him step down. That church is his, lock, stock, and barrel under his name, right? So of course, now that he has passed on, there is a board put in place, a group of leaders that, and his wife, I think she heads the board. Yeah, they're still married. So his widow is over the board. And so apparently, since Bishop Davis decided to step down earlier this year, they have been interviewing and vetting some 168 different pastors and bishops to take over this congregation at its finest, in its heyday. I think the late Bishop Eddie Long had over 50,000 members, and it dwindled down after the scandal to, I think now he has about 10,000. The church has about 10,000. So still, it's quite a few members. So and then there's a lot that comes along with succeeding the late Bishop Eddie Long. Like, even to be selected, you should be considered to be, I guess, you should be humbled. You know, the gifts are without repentance, and nobody can argue the fact that Eddie Long could bring a word. He was just anointed to preach, and no one could ever deny that. So, anywho, they have been vetting all of these people. Bishop Ellis, who I think is out of the Bahamas, amazing preacher, and he's a part of, I forget the denomination that he's a part of, but he had been flying back and forth. In the interim, he and Bishop Long were very good friends. He had been flying back and forth and, preaching on Sundays, keeping things going till they found somebody. I heard that they talked to Pastor John Gray, which I could have told you that wasn't going to work. And I got to see a little bit of the sermon from John Gray that he preached just before they brought Jamal Bryant in. And John Gray is a good speaker. I never thought he was new birth material. You have to remember, the people that sat up under Bishop Eddie Long are seasoned people. They were given the word on a routine basis. They were taught on a routine basis. So you can't just have somebody come in and they don't have the ability to teach as well. And I'm not saying Pastor John Gray don't have the ability to teach. I'm just saying that he doesn't walk in, to me, the authority that it takes to lead a church like New Birth. And I'll tell you the reason why I say that. John Gray really hasn't been back right in terms of church people since he went over to Washington and sat there next to Donald Trump. So once John Gray went up to Washington and sat there in this passive aggressive way while one pastor just bold-faced lied, and then he came back and told us that he felt that the Lord told him to go and to pray. Like, people just did not respect that from John Gray, and they didn't believe it. A lot of people felt like he was just stunting. I just don't think John Gray has positioned himself, even with this recent Instagram post where he talked about how his daughter raised him. His wife raised him along with their children. People just don't have the same respect for John Gray. So I couldn't really see it, but he was a notable name because, he has a show on OWN. Okay. So then they boiled it all down and got Jamal Bryant out of the mix. I personally, myself, don't agree with with Jamal Bryant, because Jamal Bryant, even though he is great at bringing the word, and they wanted somebody that was going to pull the youth, things like that, Jamal Bryant is another individual that believes in showmanship, and that showmanship sometimes comes before the greater good. Although Bishop Eddie Long had a lot of pizzazz and he could really, really captivate the people with his sermon, and Jamal Bryant is very similar in that way, I do believe that Bishop Eddie Long's heart was for his people. I think Jamal Bryant's heart is for himself. I do believe that Jamal Bryant is very similar in style to the late Bishop Eddie Long. I just think that he's a little bit more self-absorbed, and his sensationalism, I don't know, sometimes tends to be a little obnoxious. He likes the people to be buzzing and to be talking. There was a big scuttlebutt about him preaching a sermon called "These Hoes Ain't Loyal," which is after the Chris Brown song, which is, it's kind of what he wants. He wants to, be on the cusp of or the edge, and he could go either way between completely offending you or keeping you engaged and in intrigue. And people like ministers that kind of talk a little bit or act a little bit like they do, and that way they don't have to feel a certain way about being who they are. Jamal Bryant has a bit of a reputation that is a little bit similar to the late Bishop Eddie Long, in that it's salacious. Although we don't have fundamental proof of what went on with the late Bishop Eddie Long. We know that Jamal Bryant cheated on Giselle Bryant profusely to the point where she divorced him. We do know that he has a daughter, or at least one child, that we know for sure from having a relationship with a woman there at church. And she ended up having a baby, and there's been some talk about the fact that he wasn't paying child support. And he recently dated recording artist Tweet, and that breakup was kind of public as well. So Jamal Bryant comes with a certain amount of baggage, a certain amount of salacious baggage. And I think the hope is that with that name and with his reputation for being able to deliver a powerful sermon that stirs and moves the people, that he will be able to build those numbers and perhaps get New Birth back to where it was. Now, New Birth did a lot in the community, including rallies and stuff against the LGBT lifestyle. That was some issue that people had with the fact that these young men were accusing him of, being sexually aggressive with them. And he also did a lot in terms of voting. He's the only pastor that we know of that sold out. At the time, it was Phillips Arena twice on Easter service. Over 50,000 people in Phillips Arena for Easter service. So he's been very influential. Bishop Long has been very influential in the county of DeKalb, in the city of Stonecrest. One of the reasons why when you turn off 20, you don't just turn right off Evans Mill Road anymore. That new exit ramp that was built to handle traffic coming off of Evans Mill Road, mostly on Sundays, it was going to his church. One of the reasons why we got Stonecrest Mall in Lithonia was because of New Birth. And I'll tell you something else. New Birth is full of affluence. They are full of affluent people who are movers and shakers in the state of Georgia, in the city of Atlanta, in the county of DeKalb. Movers and shakers. He's got a lot of people of affluence in his church, and you cannot let that kind of congregation with the potential that it has go unfostered, because they'll go to other churches and tithe and give offering, and you want to keep it there. If you guys have ever seen that New Birth campus, it is a pretty impressive campus. And so it was pivotal for them in order to keep what they have and try to build themselves back up. They needed to get a big name, a heavy hitter, and that's what Jamal Bryant represents. Do I think Jamal Bryant will be able to stay in New Birth for any amount of time? He's from Baltimore. And he's a Baltimore guy, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? He's a northerner. He's not a southerner. He isn't. Yeah, the South is a little bit different, there's a subtle humility to being in the South that you have to have. You can't come across like you think you're so much and it's gonna work in the South. It's not. People gonna quickly let you know that it's saying you're not that smart. They're gonna quickly show you too that you're not that smart. So Jamal Bryant tends to be a bit arrogant. Like I said, self-involved. He did a stint the day after, or it might have been the day of. I think it was the day after they announced that he would be taking over as the lead pastor there on V103, and he had all the right things to say in terms of getting young people to vote, and you have to just listen to it. I'll try to put a link down below. I just always feel like he's selling me something. I always feel like he's telling me what I want to hear in the way that I want to hear it. And for a lot of people, that's going to be all that they need. They don't need to worry about anything else. And he admits that he has fallen short and that he is flawed. But it's the same thing he said when it came out that he had this child, out of wedlock, and he had been messing around with the girl and got the girl pregnant. You know what I mean? Like he all he says is that I'm a flawed individual. Okay. So I think they may have set him down for just a really brief period. He said he talked to his father. I don't know if he mean his blood father or if he mean a person in the church that represents a father figure to him. If he, that the guy was saying, that the word can go anywhere, which I get all that, I understand, and it was hard for him to leave Baltimore and all of that, but I don't think it was that difficult. I think they made it more than worth his while, and I think he has committed to bring this church up to a certain standard. And do I think Jamal Bryant is in it for the long haul with New Birth? I don't. That's me personally. And I'm not a Jamal Bryant fan. I would have loved to have seen Edward Long, the elder son, give it a go. But I think, there were two scandals. The first scandal was the sex scandal with the young men. And the second scandal was that Bishop Eddie Long brought an individual in who sold an investment scheme. And it wasn't anything that Bishop Long planned. He wasn't working with the guy, but he did entrust his congregation, people of affluence, to this individual, and he vouched for the individual, and the individual ended up taking members for hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands of dollars. I think they did catch the guy and put him in jail. Did they ever get their money back? So there was that too. So there's a lot of recovery that has to happen here where this church is concerned. And I think Edward Long, the eldest son, could have helped with that. But at the same time, they want maximum impact really, really fast. How can we level this church back up to where it was really, really quickly? You bring in a heavy hitter like Jamal Bryant. People love to hear him take secular dialogue and make it applicable to scriptures and sermons and teachings and make it relatable in that way. I just think that that line that he walks between secular church, it can be kind of tenuous. I personally would want a married pastor in that position. One, because a lot of the people that go there are married. They're older. But again, they're trying to appease bring in some younger crowds, some younger, fresh blood. So maybe they don't necessarily want that environment. Jamal Bryant doesn't really seem like he want to get married. He seemed like he's the kind of individual that likes sowing his oats. And in which case, Georgia is going to be that much more of an issue for him because Georgia is full of Sister Big Bones. You know what I'm saying? Beautiful, beautiful, voluptuous, well-stacked, packed women. Most of them have influence. Most of them have affluence. Most of them own everything. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is the type of girl he's interested in. He likes a pretty girl with a good head on her shoulders. Like, so we'll see. But I wanted to come in and give you guys the skinny. I know you've heard different things about Jamal Bryant, but I live stone's throw from Stonecrest and from New Birth. I am not a member, but a lot of things that go on New Birth impact my community, so I stay on top of that. I wanted to give you guys sort of a close-up view of what's happening so that we can watch it together. You hear stories, read stories, DM me, let me know. We'll stay on top of it because I want to see if my thought process of how long. I honestly, I'll give Jamal Bryant maybe 3 years, maybe 3 years. And I think the inevitable is going to happen. They're going to have to bring Edward Long in. I don't think anyone is going to stick at that church outside of Edward Long. And that's my hope and my prayer. I like Edward Long. I like to see him give it a shot. I don't think he's exactly his father, but I don't think we need that either. I think we've already had one, Bishop Eddie Long, and he did a good job being himself. So now it's time for us to see. And Edward Long has a huge following that is of the younger persuasion. So we'll see. We'll see. But that's it for me, you guys. I just wanted to weigh in on that. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please don't forget to rate and to comment and to subscribe to this video if you've not done so already. And until next time, honeybees, mwah, 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 I'll holla.